going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Wolf Coffee Roasters channel. For those just joining us, welcome. We are in the middle of a three-part series when we're talking about latte art, and what we've done so far is we've gone through hearts and tulips, where we've kind of shown you different ways to maybe fix them if you're having trouble with them at home or in a cafe setting. And today we're on to the final part, which is the Rosetta. Now I know a lot of you have been waiting for this pattern. I know certainly for me, this was one of the harder patterns to wrap my head around. I don't know if it's like a left brain versus right brain, but it is definitely a challenge for a lot of people. And I know that hopefully today we can help you make yours a little bit better and show you some of the ways or some of the pitfalls that people fall into when they go to pour this pattern. So we'll start by showing you a good one, or as good of a one that I can make it, and then from there we'll show you some of the recurring issues that people often find with this pattern. But as with these three videos, we are asking for you at home, if you're not currently subscribed to our channel, not you, but yeah, you, if you're not subscribed to our channel, click the link below and subscribe, because we would love for you to join us. We are so close to 100,000 subscribers and we want you to be part of that journey. So click it now, we can wait. See, don't you feel better? Now, once you've joined us, you can see all the other videos that we've got on our channel, as well as the upcoming ones, because we've got something really special in store for our 100,000th subscriber. We would love to show you an amazing video that we have planned for that, but you got to be on board. So jump in with us now as we see the Rosetta in all its glory. Alrighty, so the perfect Rosetta, or at least as perfect as I can get it. Now, as with all of our patterns, quality of milk comes first. From there, we make sure we're setting our crema before we slowly mix in to add our pattern. We take our time, we don't rush the pour, and hopefully what we end up with is a relatively symmetrical, clean and neat pattern within the cup. All right, now before we get into the main three issues that people seem to find with these patterns, one of the things that can trip people up a little bit before we talk about that is what kind of jug you use. Now, often there are different shapes and sizes and types and brands of milk jug. Now, what I will say about this is that generally you find a slightly sharper spout in your milk jug will tend to make this pattern slightly easier than something like a rounded spout will. So these classic styles of jugs, these Rhino-Wares jugs here, they had a very rounded spout, which was great for letting the flow come out when you were doing something like a tulip and you needed almost dollops of milk to be coming out at a time. Whereas with this pattern, you actually need something a little bit sharper that will almost cut those leaves into the pattern as you go. Now, you can go so far as to get something like a super sharp. These are Jibby jugs, and we have these on our website if you'd like to take a look. These are great because they are so sharp and cut those patterns so well. What I'm using to prove to you today how to do these patterns, I'm using the Rhino-Wares Pro. Again, find them on our website, but these ones are that little bit sharper than the Rhino-Wares Classic, and they prove to make for a much better, more consistent and more defined leaf within your Rosetta. So just have a think about what kind of jug you use. That's not to say that a rounded spout won't work. For a lot of people, if you only ever pour with these jugs, maybe you can refine a way to pour a really nice Rosetta using a rounded spout. But if it's still not working, try a sharper spout and you might find that that works for you. Common mistake number one. A lot of you are probably sitting at home thinking, but Adam, you keep calling it a Rosetta. Mine doesn't look like what you're calling a Rosetta. I'd call it more of a fern. And that is generally the problem with most people's first Rosettas. The motion for a Rosetta, even though it is that wiggle as you pull out through the cup, the actual initial motion is you actually bring your hands slightly closer together before pulling them apart. What that provides for is that base piece of the Rosetta before it gets thinner towards the top. Most people's first ever Rosetta, and certainly mine, looking back at a photo I had from 16 years ago now, is that my first ever Rosetta can only be described as a fern. And the reason for that being is that if you don't bring your hands closer together first, you only pull that pattern outwards towards the top of the cup, is that it ends up more fern-like, more like a very tall Christmas tree, because of the fact that it doesn't build that base out in the cup. You need to build that base first for it to be a Rosetta and not a fern. A fern is a pattern unto itself, it's just not this. Alrighty, problem number two. Now, when we talk about the positioning of the Rosetta, Similar to when we were talking about hearts, and really where you start the placement of the cup and that pattern is you have to be really careful not to push too low into the cup. With a rosetta, as compared to say a tulip that allows you that stop-start motion, is that it has the ability to flow across that top of that cup all the way to the end. You're not pulling out and starting again or adding extra layers to it. You're creating one consistent flow in that cup. If you start the pattern too deep into the cup, and that is to say you haven't tilted the angle of the cup correctly and you've placed it 3/4 or even 4/5 of the way down into the cup, is once that flow starts, it's going to push all the way to the end. And the moment it touches the edge of that cup, it'll wash out the entire pattern by kind of hitting the edge, breaking the crema and swirling the pattern through the cup. And what you lose then is not only the overall look of the pattern, but at the same time the inability to have a consistency and flavor in the cup. Unfortunately now, on most of this cup, I have the same flavor, but right on one edge, if I were to take a sip from that edge, it's going to taste milkier and less like a nice, rich, full-bodied cup of coffee than the rest of the cup. I've unfortunately undone part of that mix-in process. Common problem number 3. Now, this one gets a lot of people because it is very much a pattern that requires a lot of multitasking. And why I say that is because you have to find a rate at which you not only pull the jug out of the cup to give height to the pattern, but at the same time the rate at which you're wiggling that jug to create each leaf. Now, my most common go-to in order to maintain a good rate of both pulling that jug out at the same time as wiggling is that the rate at which I wiggle should be fast enough that I can count it, but not so fast that I lose that count. Now, it is a very fast count in my head. It's almost like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is very quick, but it is not so quick and such a vibrant movement that I'm unable to keep count. And what that allows me to do is make sure that I'm getting really nice, consistent leaves throughout the cup. Go too slow, and you'll end up in what we like to call a slow zeta, which is the realms of a really drawn-out leaf. And that is, again, a different pattern altogether, and it is something that can be achieved. But to do a nice, simple rosetta, you have to have that balance of not only tilting and jug angle, but then also pulling that jug out and wiggling all at the same time. It's like we're asking you to pat your head and rub your belly at the same time. It is a very difficult thing to achieve, but once you get a hang of it, it all works out okay. So, that's rosettas. I know for a lot of people they are one of the most challenging patterns right before swans, and certainly that was the case for me. Hopefully what I've provided you today is some tips and tricks as to kind of what the most common trope might be for you and where you constantly fall short, and hopefully how to get out of that. Now remember, if you're not subscribed, we would love to have you join us. Also, because we're approaching that 100,000, we've got so many more videos on the horizon, but we would also love to hear from you. So all I want for Christmas is for you to subscribe to our channel, but throw a comment down below, all I want for Christmas is, and finish that sentence. What do you want to see from us? Is it more unboxings of equipment that we haven't done? Is it more latte art? Do you want to see some more stuff on our roasters? We would love to hear from you. Give us some ideas on what we can provide that'll really keep you on our channel and with us all that way through that journey. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.